After the cochlear implant is mapped, the adult or the child goes home and gets used to the sounds and continues to visit the audiologist regularly to make sure that the sounds are being processed to the best of the speech processor's ability and a best fit for the patient. Adults are cochlear implant candidates if they have hearing loss due to hair cell damage acquired after the development of speech and language. So, a child that is born deaf, that grows up deaf, is not a candidate for a cochlear implant because their auditory nerve and their auditory cortex never made those connections with sound during the critical period of development. However, adults who have had hearing through childhood into adulthood and then lost their hearing for one reason or another are candidates because their brain has made those connections necessary to process sound. Children are candidates if they have a profound bilateral hearing loss. The earlier you plant them, the better. So even now around 12 months, even less than 12 months, infants are starting to be implanted so that they can take advantage of that critical period so that no time is wasted without hearing. Ideally, there are no additional handicaps. You also really need an active and dedicated family support system because it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of talking all day long to keep those ears stimulated. The family also has to have realistic expectations. Cochlear implants are not a quick fix, so the family has to be fully committed to the time and effort required for success. Successful implantation of children is dependent upon the coordinated interaction with a team of professionals working with dedicated parents. You need an otologist, so the ear surgeon, the pediatrician, a psychologist to help both the child and the parents adjust to how their life is not what they expected it to be, an audiologist that programs the hearing aid, and the speech therapist that is always working with the child to develop the spoken language. The audiologist determines whether or not the child is a candidate for an implant. The audiologist is instrumental in programming or mapping the speech processor. Along with the speech-language pathologist, the audiologist serves as the liaison to the child's educational setting to help ensure that the child's teachers are familiar with the cochlear implant and how to make sure that it's turned on and that it's working. And they help to provide educational recommendations about acoustics in the classroom and, preferential seating and all the tools that will help the child to succeed. This is not a quick fix. Parents must anticipate an intensive rehabilitation program, extensive speech perception training, speech and language therapy. It requires active involvement of the parents every step of the way. With appropriate habilitation, children deafened before the age of 3 who receive implants will maximize their chances of interacting with the hearing world. If the child is implanted before 2.5 years, there are significantly stronger outcomes in consonant production accuracy and vocabulary compared with age-matched peers that are implanted later. So the earlier the child is implanted, the more you are able to take advantage of that critical period of development, the better the outcomes. With appropriate habilitation, you have improved personal and social adjustment levels of those young cochlear implant recipients. There is still this ethical consideration. Should others make implantation decisions for children who are too young to choose whether they wish to try to live in a hearing world reside in the deaf community. Cochlear implants, in some ways, are eradicating deafness, and there is a very rich culture in the deaf community. So by implanting these deaf babies very early on, you're not giving them the opportunity to grow up in the deaf community or to make the choice for themselves. Cochlear implant recipients may not be able to discriminate among many sounds of speech. However, both objective and subjective outcome measures document the success of the implantation. So even though frequency discrimination is far from perfect in these cochlear implant recipients, voices can be heard at normal conversational levels, providing sound awareness cues such as rate, rhythm, and that can assist in speech reading. So cochlear implants recipients outperform their peers with hearing aids in all aspects of spoken language. Cochlear implant recipients reports that hearing their own voice allows the recipients to monitor their vocal pitch and their loudness more effectively. Some are able to discriminate speech even over the telephone. And there is a big benefit to binaural implantation. That is now becoming much more standard than unilateral implantation. For the same reason we work better when we have our 2 ears, children with cochlear implants do better having 2 implants as opposed to 1. So there are a variety of personal factors that lead to success with adults. The shorter the time that they are deaf, the better off or the more likely they will succeed with their implant. For children, those that are implanted earlier will outperform those that are implanted later. It's a collaboration between the audiologist, the speech pathologist, the family, and the school. Everybody needs to understand the device's functions, maintenance, and have appropriate expectations. Ongoing audiological management is necessary, so the child will continue to see the audiologist for programming, to monitoring performance, and to assess the hearing levels and whether or not they've been improved. So the child or the adult will continue to go to the audiologist for a tweaking of their implant.